So then we come on to arguments about local groups, right? So this is probably, I suspect, I mean, I'm doing this film before we've actually hit the ground, so who knows? But my intuition is that once you hit the real world, I mean, everyone knows this, you're just going to have semi-chaos at best and total chaos at worst, if you see what I mean. So you need to be able to make some arguments to these local groups to be saying, look, this is how we're doing it and this is why we're doing it. And again, the cultural default is that, this happens all around the Western world. I suppose that's where my experience of organising people is people have got no idea how to organise. Most people are, working, situation where they just go in, they do the same thing every day, so there's not need for that much organisation, or if they are, they're just, some manager just comes along and tells them what to do, or they have some sort of bullshitty training program, I don't know, but it's not good. So when they suddenly come into some sort of voluntary situation, it's all pretty chaotic and you get dysfunctional sort of individuals taking the lead. And as I said, the major problem is that they take things over. So again, you can sort of summarize what usually happens with social movement local chapters, which is it's a mess. It's disorganized, bad, annoying people take charge, and it's confusing, it's not clear, there's no clear structure, there's no training. That's the default. So again, in all these arguments, basically what you're saying is, this is what it normally is, which is not that great, and then this is what we're doing, which arguably is great. So why is the XRA system arguably great? Okay, so the first thing is to explain that you're going to have the Heading for Extinction talk, and you've got the first meeting. So in that first meeting, you've got time for people to understand the XR system. They're going to be going through what I'm doing on this video. And then they're going to have the mass mobilisation workshops. They're going to have an action workshop, and they're going to have a regen workshop. And then there's going to be groups that do this. And then there'll be a small coordination group of coordinators from these three groups and a general coordinator, basically, who are going to administrate it, look after the finance, organise minutes and documents and sending stuff out and doing some of the social media and what have you. So why do you want to organise it like that? The first thing to say is, if you just have big groups of like 50, 100 people coming to meetings, it's profoundly alienating. And it's profoundly alienating because people have less time to speak. There's a good correlation or relationship between empowerment and speech. So people just sitting there like you are watching this video, which is always a bit tricky when I'm doing these videos and making this point. But generally speaking, if you just go to a meeting and there's just people talking about boring stuff at the front, unless you're a real nerdy political sort of person, you're just going to go, well, it's not really for me, I'm not sure what's happening, and you don't really feel connected to all these people, and you'll end up leaving and you'll be back down to 20 people. So that's the first thing. And then a second thing is, it's just alienating because you haven't really got a chance to enact, create anything yourself. So by splitting the meetings and the group into subgroups, basically you're never really in a room with more than, say, 20 people. And if you're in a room with 20 people, you're going to be splitting up pretty quickly anyway into breakout groups. So I can make an argument, as it were. You need to make arguments for those three different groups. So the mass mobilisation, the argument for that, obviously, is that we need to get out and spread the word, specifically to get people to sign up, give money, and join the affinity groups, either as someone who's going to support people in civil disobedience or enact it. The way to do that is to get out and do the 7 mobilisation methods, door knocking, stalls, social media, house meetings, etc., etc. And the way to do that is to give people sheets where they can make commitments to concrete activities in small groups and then come together and create small groups to do it. And this is the key argument, that when you're in a small group of less than 8 people, you become a lot more accountable to each other, because you actually can see Joe across the table, as it were, and you're definitely going to turn up to the stall on Saturday because you've actually just told him you're going to do that. And secondly, like everyone knows, when you're a small group, it's a lot more like matey and it's human scale. And so you can bond and you're in your little group. You're not in some big alienating political meeting. All right, so what's the other two, major arguments about how this is structured? So another thing about the structure is that no group, and again, this is another major challenge, is no group has a monopoly on the area. So when you set up XRA Kentucky, you're not saying, hey guys, you've got Kentucky and it's your property. It's not your property. What it is a group of people, an alliance of the willing, coming back to that concept, an alliance of the willing group who's going, hey, me and Joe and Jack and Jane or whatever, we're getting together in Kentucky to set up a XR group. It's simple as that. So you sort of create this reality by having a name that's not anything to do with the area, or at least the first part of the name is. So you can have the Kentucky Wanderers, right, or whatever they want to be called, or the Kentucky Owls. So you've got a geographical orientation, but you're not Kentucky XR, you're the Kentucky Owls, if that's the right way. Kentucky Pigs, I don't know. Anyway, and then the next phrase is going to be based in North Kentucky, let's say, right? So in the last analysis, they can have a name which isn't actually, hasn't got their area in, or they could. But you're saying, yeah, you're based in North Kentucky. But the key thing is if another group wants to start off in North Kentucky, they can call themselves the Kentucky Swans or whatever, based in North Kentucky as well. So what does this mean? So this is slightly experimental, but the argument here, and this is the argument to make, is like instead of trying to force groups to, follow a really rigid list of things that would work well, if a group becomes a little bit dysfunctional, a bit too big, or simply people want to go and work with their own friends, then there's nothing to stop them. And that means that people vote with their feet. So the key argument here is it enables people to vote with their feet. If a group's a bit rubbish, then you can go and set up your own group. Or again, if you want to set up a particular group that you like, then why not, right? And this is an argument for saying this aids mobilisation, because instead of getting through into a sort of gatekeeping bottleneck of, you can't do this until we say so, you can say, no, we're going off to do something on our own, which, again, follows various protocols, ways of working. And this is actually institutionalized, so you need to make the argument that once a group becomes over 50 members anyway, it's basically not very friendly because there's too many people, and it's just another big alienating mass of complexity and confusion. So how do we get around that? When a group gets to 50 members, i.e. 50 people paying their subscription, then it has to split up. So that's like a key rule. So the first key rule is you don't have a monopoly. Second key rule is when you get to 50 members, you split up. And you split up because the evidence shows that when you're in a smaller group, you get more people engaged, all right, proportionately than you would in a big group. So let's say, in London, you can use this example, it's like 200 people coming to meetings, but there's hardly anything happening in the suburbs of London. Then we've split up into 30 groups, so there's no central London big meeting anymore. And then you've got like 150 people starting to go to meetings in the suburbs because it's nearer to get to, and it's more friendly, and it's localised, and it's smaller scale. So that's proven that's how you sort of build a movement, rather than having these massive groups with a few people, making the shots. All right. So the third rule, as it were, is that the local groups have to make an agreement. So again, this is a bit of a new culture thing. Usually you set up a group and you say, that's fine. No. Right, in XRA, if you want to set up a group, you have to have a look at a document and you have to sign that document, and you need core things that you need to do. So I can't quite remember them all, but you can look that up. And what that means is it creates like a standardization. This is what we're about, mobilizing and doing actions with a view to going to Washington. That's the project. If you want to do something else, that's super cool, but not in XRA space, right? So if you want to do recycling, or you want to do some, 350 org rally, that sounds great. You can go with your little badge or something, but you're not taking the banner, you're not going officially as XRA. All XRA is doing this particular process. So you sign this agreement which tells you what to do, and then you have to, the fourth thing then is you have to provide metrics. And metrics isn't like someone breathing down your neck telling you what to do. What it is about being accountable. So that's the core argument here. When you join an XRA group, you're joining like a project, and you're accountable for that brand and that name. So it's not like you can just run off with XRA, and do crap stuff and then you ruin the reputation for other people. No, what you need to do is to do set things. And again, if you don't want to, that's cool, you can join another group. But if you are going to do those things, you also have to show specifically what you've done. So it's not a matter of sending in a report going, hey, yeah, we're great in Kentucky and we're doing loads of stuff. Like, what does that mean? It could mean anything, right? What you need to do is to send in concrete information. That concrete information is, in Kentucky XRA, Kentucky Swans. Last week we did 2 stalls, we did 4 house meetings, and we had a Rebel Ringers night, with 20 people and pizza, round at Joe's house. That's what we did this week. And you write it in. And then anyone around the world can go on to Kentucky Swans and go, what's happening in Kentucky? Oh, there's a Kentucky Swans group. That's great. Let's check out what they're doing. Oh, all right, they're doing loads of stalls. You know what? I'm going to get in touch with them, and then they'll have a contact detail. They'll contact the group, and the coordinator will go, yeah, if you want to come along and help on the stall, there's a little training session, and then you can go and do it. You see what I mean? So everyone can see. And the second argument about this is if a group's doing really well, then that's fantastic, and they can tell everyone else, their cool ways of doing it. Having biscuits at their meetings or something. That's why everyone likes it. And if a group's doing really badly, then again, usually 9 times out of 10, they just need some support. So they might need some extra training from mass mobilizers. But the point is you can tell. It's not in some mist. Which groups are happening in Tennessee. We don't really know, and we don't know what they're doing. No. We can look at straight away, find out what they're doing. Did you need some help? And in the last analysis, if they're really crap or something, to say, well, we're decertifying you and we're going to set up a new group because, it's all got a bit dysfunctional or something. But, 9 times out of 10, that's not really the case. What we found in the UK is people actually just need some help, right? A bit of loving, tender care, as you might say. Need to get in there and say, how can we help you, and blah, blah, blah.